What's up, Whisper Nation? We are back at it, episode 86 already. We are talking the Week 8 reaction recap right here on the Fantasy Whispers.
Yes, we're back again.
Hey, let's pump up the volume.
Right here.
What's up, Whisper Nation? It's Monday, October 28th, and you're listening to episode 86 of the Fantasy Whispers with your hosts, Johnny Game Time Hicks, Big Travy, and me, Chelsea. If you want to follow the show, you can do so on Twitter at TF Whispers. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram at The Fantasy Whispers. And you should definitely visit the website, thefantasywhispers.com, where we've got articles, latest episodes, rankings, and new for 2019, we have our Patreon account. You can help support our show by joining as a patron of The Fantasy Whispers, where you'll gain a ton of access to bonus content. So head on over to patreon.com and search The Fantasy Whispers today. Woo.
What up? Chelsea's back.
I'm back.
We're back.
Well, I don't know if we're all back. I'm not back yet. I'm struggling already this morning with the running the show here. I almost messed up the intro there, Travis.
Yeah, you did all right. We'll keep you around, I think. But Chelsea, welcome back.
Thanks.
We have.
That was not a very enthusiastic thanks. She was
I
just
missed you guys.
Oh,
yeah,
I could tell.
We got to welcome Chelsea back. She's been gone. We've been gone on this show, a little bit inconsistent. So Whisper Nation, we apologize for that. Just got some crazy stuff going on our end, but we are back and ready. And Week 8 is just about wrapped up. We're only missing that Monday night game. And as always, we want to come back and
I'm missing my entire Sunday games. My fantasy teams are. So.
Despite Johnny needing the results to be different, those games were played. They have gone final. But we wanted to talk to you a little bit about those games, give you a recap reaction, as we always like to do when we can get in the lab on a Monday and kind of dissect these games, give you the fantasy football storylines for them. But before we do that, we always like to get some whispers from the Whisper Nation. Johnny, anything interesting, great, that you want to bring some light to that we got from our faithful?
Yeah, so we got this really cool review here from jsnaps_ on Instagram. He said, "Dude, thank you so much for the advice. I appreciate it. I'm subscribed to you on YouTube channel. Also, your guys' work is great. We greatly appreciate that. And I'll be honest with you, jsnaps_ that's pretty much the only thing that's keeping me going right now, because certainly it's not my fantasy team."
Wow, yeah. Well, we appreciate you, jsnaps. We appreciate all you. If you want more content, get over to thefantasywhispers.com. Hit us up on YouTube, like and subscribe. You guys can leave us a comment there. We also appreciate it if you're listening to us right now on any of these social or on any of the podcast platforms, like Apple Podcast or Google Play. Please leave us a review. It would mean the world to us, and we could shout you out on the show. We do want to jump into those reactions and recap of Week 3, but before we do that, Chelsea, we got to jump into some news. Yeah, news and notes.
Fanatic. Yep, so it's time for news and notes from around the NFL, brought to you by Fanatic. That's FANATIQ. That's where fantasy meets IQ. Fanatic has done some amazing work to their app this offseason, including adding articles, podcast episodes, player stats, and beat writer updates, all within the app. So head on over to the App Store on your Apple device and download that today. Yeah, wow. Lots of injury reports. So let's get through these quickly. Running back Chase Edmonds is hurt, and Zach Zenner jumped into that game for the Cardinals yesterday. We worried about an injury long term. I mean, that depleted running back core now. Geesh.
Yeah, so this was not good news at all. Definitely not in the game after that. The kind of wheels fell off for the Arizona Cardinals. You could clearly see Zach Zenner was not up to speed on the playbook. Seems like they just brought him in more to see what he knew about the New Orleans Saints than to actually play him. But Chase Edmonds hurt his hamstring. There were reports that a little bit later that he said he could return, or he wanted to return. The team held him out for obvious reasons. They need him more for Thursday night's game. But definitely monitor this because it is a Thursday night game. It'll be short rest. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't practice at all this week, and it'll come down to a game time decision. But be cautious if you're playing him this next week against 49ers defense that is rather good.
And another running back injury, Miles Sanders left the game with a shoulder injury. Well, no doubt this means good work for Jordan Howard, but what do we think about the Eagles offense altogether?
We also saw Boston Scott get a goal line carry there, too. I wonder if that had anything to do with Miles Sanders' injury. And Sanders had a really nice game here, showed some bursts, showed some playmaking ability.
Shout out to you, Travis. I got to say, big shout out to you. You were beating this drum on the last episode last week. You were telling everybody start Sanders this week, and if you listen to Big Travy, you were probably sitting here with the W.
Yeah, I thought he had a good chance to make some big plays happen. He did. I mean, obviously, he only rushed 3 times, but he got 74 yards and a touchdown off that small production. He did walk to the locker room with his arm at his side, so we're looking at a situation where he could be questionable here going into that week 9 matchup against the Bears. So monitor this situation closely.
Awesome. Another injury to report on. D.D. Westbrook, wide receiver for the Jaguars, was out neck shoulder injury.
Yeah, neck, shoulder, knees, and toes. D.D. Westbrook continues to be was continuing to be a bright spot for this Jacksonville Jaguars team, but now it looks like DJ Shark will continue to soak up the majority of the targets here. So D.D. was kind of that bye week filler anyways for you. You probably weren't rostering him unless you needed to try and fill in for injuries or bye week stuff, but it's just kind of a shame that they can't keep that offense healthy right now.
Sure. Brandon Cooks, a concussion. Oof.
I had Brandon Cooks in multiple leagues, big fat 0 from his concussion. This will be his second of the year already. So we'll wonder if it's going to take him a little bit longer to get back from this one than it did the first one. Johnny, do you have any thoughts on the Brandon Cooks?
Yeah, it's really, really sad, of course, but to be honest with you, it doesn't really matter because Jared Goff only has eyes for Cooper Kupp. It doesn't matter who else is open, doesn't matter who else is running routes. It is just the Cooper Kupp and Jared Goff.
Sounds like a disgruntled Robert Woods.
No, just
or
say,
somebody who just played.
It's like you're on The Bachelor, and you came in second place, and all this person does, all The Bachelor does, is just go for the other girl every time. Ask her on the same date every time. It's like, come on, spread the love. Take somebody else out once in a while.
Johnny wants to be taken out by Jared Goff, and he just won't do it.
No, but Robert Woods does. I'm just saying. But yeah, on the Brandon Cooks front, this is could be a little bit serious here. Second concussion in a couple of weeks. Definitely not good.
How worried are we about the Aaron Jones? Wow, the Aaron Jones situation. Packers running back went down with a shoulder injury. He came back though.
Yeah, he did. Right? He did come back and he closed out the game for them, which was really good to see because on that final drive they needed him, and he came up big. They ran the ball, pounded out, never gave the ball back to Matt Moore, and that's because Aaron Jones was really good with the ball in his hand. Look, they continue to draw up great plays for him in the passing game. And I would be very excited if I'm an Aaron Jones owner and just kind of watch that shoulder situation, but he should be good.
Great. Speaking of great, Patrick Mahomes, despite a crazy dislocated knee situation, is already eyeing a Week 10 return. Is he superhuman?
Well, he was telling Michelle last night that he would have played in this game if it was a playoff game.
Right.
So we've got a situation here where, I think he will come back exactly when they say if he's practicing a week after that dislocated knee.
I'm really concerned about this. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm really concerned because this is a quick turnaround, and all I can remember is the Kyrie Irving situation where he came back. He had the exact same injury, came back too early, and ended up making it much worse. And I would hate to see that to Pat Mahomes. I would hate for them to push him just because he wants to play.
On the reverse of that, I actually think, obviously he could be, speeding up the knee timeline, but I do like that he's off the field right now, healing the ankle up. Because the ankle
that
was
is
the
true.
issue that got him into this, and now he's off the field. He's being forced off the field here with the knee thing. So maybe if the knee does fully heal in time, I mean, their bye is week 11, I believe.
Yeah,
So
it's
if
late.
he's eyeing week 10 and they're doing okay, we'll see. I mean, their schedule isn't the easiest, but we could see maybe Andy Reid hold him out. Matt
Yeah,
Moore played really well last night.
Let's just say they don't have the New England Patriots schedule. So
All right, and coming back week 10 also, we could be looking out for AJ Green, who's been dealing with an ankle this entire season so far.
Yeah, by the time you're listening to this, AJ Green may have been traded. The deadline is this week, so we could see if he gets moved. But it looks like I haven't seen anything kind of smoke and fire for AJ Green here yet. But I think he probably will come back in week 10, which is kind of crazy. He's coming back to this Bengals team that just cannot get anything going on the field. So
And his presence isn't going to make much of a difference.
no,
Such a shame.
Yeah.
Well, as we're gearing up for the end of the trade talk deadline, we've got an exciting potential, right? Kenyon Drake, running back for the Dolphins currently. Where could this guy go? Where could he be a good fit? Where could we see some impact out of Kenyon Drake if he does get traded out?
I think he is going to go to the Detroit Lions, especially after what we saw yesterday. We'll get more into that in the show. But my call would be the Detroit Lions. I think he would be really good there as well. His talent, them wanting to run the ball, I think that they would be able to free Kenyon Drake. Also, Houston Texans are reported to be one of the teams. I don't know how they would make that happen after they've given up pretty much everything in order to get players already on their team, but that would be certainly another interesting one for sure.
Yeah, I think I agree with Johnny that he'll probably go to the Lions. You see the connection there between Matt Patricia, Brian Flores. They both are from the Patriots tree. So you could definitely see that. They are in the need. But one that I would really like, kind of the dream situation for me, is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You get that pass game specialist and a guy who could run between the tackles over there with Bruce Arians. And look, they have ran the ball consistently. They just haven't done it well. So they've definitely needed somebody to spark their running game, and Kenyon Drake could be that guy.
Keep the man in Florida. I love it.
Yeah.
That's all we've got from news and notes from around the league. Thanks, y'all.
Right on. Thank you, Chelsea, and thank you to Fanatic. If you have an Apple device, iPad, or phone, you can get over to the App Store and download Fanatic, Fanatiq, today. But we're about to download or give you the lowdown on these great storylines that we have from week 8. We had some crazy action happen. And Johnny, our first storyline is David Montgomery. And I just ask you simply, has David Montgomery arrived on the scene? Can we expect more out of this strong performance we saw on Sunday?
I think we can. I think we can finally start to turn the corner on David Montgomery and see him getting more touches. Listen, he has been shown that he is the goal line back for this team, which is already kind of, any goal line back has value. But now, so after the week 7 debacle where they only ran the ball 7 times, it is being reported that after the game, Nagy went into the locker room and said that he told his own players that it was horseshit that they only ran the ball 7 times, and he vowed that he would run the ball more. He even listened to what he took ownership of it, and that saying that they will run the ball more, and he listened to his offensive linemen and what they wanted to do, and they were saying they wanted to run the ball more. And so we saw that. He listened to his players, and I think he has to at this point because he could end up losing that locker room based on the talent they have on that team. They should be a lot better. But David Montgomery gets 27 rushing attempts. Talk about an overcorrection here. 27 rushing attempts for 135 yards and a touchdown. He had a big scamper there. He also added 5. He had 5 targets, 4 receptions for 12 yards. I think that this is something you can buy into. I think that moving forward, they will start to get him more involved. They need to, because he's certainly the best talented running back there. I mean, Tevin Coleman, with all due respect, He's more of a gadget guy. He's more of a guy that should be
Yeah.
lined up wide outside, and they should be having David Montgomery be the workhorse for this team. It just makes sense.
Yeah, I think you're right there, and I think Matt Nagy realizes that this is a game that they should have won. They missed it on a field goal kick here at the end, but we saw some things out of David Montgomery. First of all, highest snap percentage of the year, 73%. We saw his best yards per carry of the year with 5. You talked about him, breaking the century mark, 135 yards on 27 carries. You really liked that, and I think we saw similar things happen last year with the Bears, where they got into this area of the season and they had to lean on the run again, and they've done that. They should do that again this year as the weather turns, as they try to gear up and get back to basics to win football games. You see teams do this all the time. The basics of winning is stopping the run and then running the football yourself, and so they have a good defense. They may want to play to that card given Mitch Trubisky's struggles, and I think that could be on the back of the young rookie David Montgomery here. So I'm excited about David Montgomery. I hope you held him. We never advised trading him away, just maybe benching him for now. This wasn't a great matchup, but he was worth a flex play in this one, and we hope you got him in your lineup there. But speaking of a guy we hoped you had in your lineup that we've been banging the drum on pretty consistently, Tevin Coleman, man.
Oh, man, we got so many questions on Tevin Coleman yesterday, and I'm glad to say we answered those ones right, Travis.
Yeah, well, Tevin Coleman had been showing some great signs since he came back over the last month, Johnny. And this game, it kind of just all came to fruition. So why don't you tell Whisper Nation a little bit about the game and then what you're feeling on Tevin Coleman so far?
Yeah, I mean, the 49ers came out and they just went all over the Carolina Panthers. This was what was crazy. Tevin Coleman only ended up with 11 carries yesterday, but you wouldn't, if you looked at what his total fantasy production was, you would not have thought he did all of this on just 11 carries. He had 105 yards, so that's a whopping 9.5 yards per carry, Travis. 3 rushing touchdowns, 2 receptions for 13 yards, and another touchdown. So on 13 total touchdowns, or 13 total carries, he scored 4 touchdowns. I can barely get this out. So had himself a really, really good day. It's looking like they are fully trusting Tevin Coleman. They took him out. He could have even had 5, maybe even 6 touchdowns in this game, but they ended up benching him in the fourth quarter, and they brought in Mr. Old Touchdown Vulture over there, who ended up getting hurt, the 4th-string running back.
Jeff Wilson.
Jeff Wilson. It didn't look too good. But my question to you, Travis, so Burita also got banged up in this game. Surprise, surprise. Their schedule is getting a little bit more difficult. Where do you rank Coleman rest of the season? Is he a low-end RB1 for you, a high-end RB2, middling RB2? Where are you at with Tevin Coleman?
Yeah, so you do have Breda still there. You have the other backs that have been good in stints in Mostert and Jeff Wilson. Obviously, if they get dinged up, you need to upgrade Coleman. But I think Coleman should be locked in as an RB2. Listen, this team runs the most in the NFL, and Coleman is their goal line back. And now he's kind of dominated the touches even, and he's leaked in. So now in a 1A, 1B situation that we thought when Coleman came back was Breda as the 1A and Coleman as the 1B. It's really, Coleman as the 1A now, and Breda looks to be the 1B. And if Breda misses time, Coleman's going to be fired up. And then you look at this game, you said the schedule does get tougher, but they've got Arizona here on a Thursday night. That's going to be a game that you're firing them up there. Then the Seattle Seahawks, then the Cardinals again. It's not until really they play the Baltimore Ravens or the Saints that you're afraid of kind of a run defense there. Mm-hmm. And I think that Coleman is a guy that if you held on to him, you're really happy because he's really come through not only for the 49ers, but for fantasy football purposes. Speaking of a guy that continues to come through for fantasy football, Aaron Jones continues to be a stud. Could have easily had even another touchdown in this game if he had just learned to keep that heel in bounds. But Johnny, we were talking at the top of the show here. I continue to really like what Matt LaFleur has done with Aaron Jones in the passing game.
Yeah.
You say the way that Aaron Jones scores touchdowns on the ground is maybe a little unsustainable. He's had a really good touchdown rate as a running back that probably should dip. But what keeps his floor nice and high and at an elite level is the way they're using him in the passing game. Nobody throws to the running backs more in the NFL than Green Bay right now. And that was something that was, we thought they could throw to the running back with consistency, but not be tops in the NFL at doing it. And that's just because Matt LaFleur has drawn up some really interesting things for this team. So, Johnny, is Aaron Jones a top 5 potential guy the rest of the season for you, or do you see him more as a top 10? And how are you feeling about Aaron Jones going forward?
Listen, I love Aaron Jones. You guys, if you listen to the show, you know that I'm a huge Aaron Jones fan. However, I don't see a top 5 in his future. I see top 10 potential for sure. Here's my concern here. He had 13 carries for 67 yards. They're getting Jamal Williams in on the rushing game. He had 8 targets, 7 receptions for 159 yards and 2 touchdowns. He is getting a lot of volume out of the backfield to the tune of 8 targets. A lot because of their wide receivers depth situation right now. You have Davante Adams, who is still being held out because of the turf toe. You've got Geronimo Allison banged up. You've got all these. I was looking at Dynasty yesterday because I messed up and I had thought Davante Adams could possibly play, and playing Big Travy actually. And I noticed like halfway through the morning games that I still had Davante Adams in my lineup. So I went on our Dynasty waiver wire, and Jake Kumaro, I was honestly eyeing as a guy that I could pick up and play, and he ended up having himself a pretty solid day. But that's how bad it is. Like the wide receivers Aaron Rodgers is playing with right now are available on a Dynasty waiver wire. That tells you something. I that's where I'm concerned, because the majority of his production yesterday came through the passing game. It wasn't through the running game. Now, do I think his running game gives him a very solid floor? Absolutely. I think he is going to be a very solid running back, but I just don't see the top 5 potential once Davante Adams come back, and that's going to be in the playoffs time. So don't rely on those really solid days like this where he's putting up like 34 points. Geez, 34 to 40 points in some leagues. I wouldn't expect that, but yeah.
We talk about, them, or we talk about the schedule coming up, and they've got the Chargers you're not too scared of, but the Chargers looking better on defense over the last couple weeks. Then Carolina, who just got ran roughshod by the 49ers. Then their bye. Then San Francisco. That's a tough matchup. But gearing back up towards the playoffs, they play the Giants and Redskins. So I do think there's going to be some spots in here. The playoff schedule is a little bit murky, but I do think that, once again, I think the receiving game is going to keep his floor nice and high. You're going to hear a lot of fantasy analysts maybe saying, sell Aaron Jones. The value cannot get any higher than it is right now. I'm going to say hold on him, but yeah, I would temper expectations. I don't expect a top 5 finish at the end of the year. But you're happy with what he's given you so far.
I was reading this great piece about Aaron Jones this morning, and it was talking about how he writes down his goals. He's a really goal-oriented guy, and he's got 3 goals written on his mirror: lead the league in total touchdowns, rushing touchdowns, and receiving touchdowns. And the first of the 3 he can do, right? He's beating Christian McCaffrey, actually, in total touchdowns in the NFL at this point.
So got him.
Yeah, and as of last night, he just became only one of few running backs who has at least 150 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns in a game. So whatever he's doing, it's really exciting. It's exciting for fantasy owners, but will it continue? I think really exciting.
Yeah, that battle with Christian McCaffrey is a little bit interesting too, because I'm looking at the last 4 weeks here, right? And you've got Aaron Jones with 225 rushing yards, Christian McCaffrey with 300. The rushing touchdowns, McCaffrey has 4, Jones has 5. The receptions, McCaffrey has 20, Aaron Jones has 21. And then the touchdowns for receiving. Chris McCaffrey's got 2. Aaron Jones has 1 over the last month. So you see these guys kind of duking it out in their offenses, and Aaron Jones doing it on a lot less touches.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of interesting. That'll be fun to watch for the remainder of the season. And I think Potter agrees. So
clearly. And Charlie. Charlie's even getting in on the action on that.
Yeah. So speaking of getting in on action, Cooper Kupp, man, had a career day yesterday. So Johnny, I know.
Not surprised. Cooper Kupp, man.
Cooper Kupp. Johnny had the joy, the pleasure of playing against Cooper Kupp in our league of record.
Listen, I'm telling you, Whisper Nation. Yeah, so I always, every single week, play career days against, whoever I'm playing in fantasy has career days. So this week did not fail me. Lived up to expectations just as I had expected. And Cooper Kupp, 220 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown. The players actually on the Cincinnati Bengals were playing slip and slide in front of Cooper Kupp. As he ran by, they thought they were playing soccer because they were in England, and they had been watching some soccer games. This is a true story, actually. They were watching some soccer games and noticed like all the players would slide on their knees after goals and stuff. Well, the Bengals defense doesn't score like at all. So the only time that they could actually slide on their knees and everything like that was actually during plays, and Cooper Kupp was the main beneficiary of that. So,
yeah, Cooper Kupp has been dominant this year, and this is a guy that last year before the injury was on pace to be a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy football, and now he's just kind of filled right back into that role. We heard some scary reports out of preseason that he was going to be faster and better than he was before last year, and he's done nothing to dissuade those takes from his coach Sean McVay this year. I mean, he's got 87 targets, 58 receptions on the year. He's the number 2 wide receiver in half-point PPR fantasy football, with only Michael Thomas ahead of him right now. And so you look at what they've got going on in a year where Todd Gurley has not been his best, and they continue to lean on Cooper Kupp as the main vein in this offense, as crazy as that sounds. But I couldn't love this story more. I love Cooper Kupp so much. I mean, just what he does on the field as far as his ability to get his other teammates involved. He basically tells them the plays. He shows defenses to Jared Goff and kind of communicates that with them. He's a very smart, very savvy player.
Oh, he does more than just that with Jared Goff. I'll tell you that.
He's great at blocking. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL, and I enjoy watching his success this year, and really excited about what he can do going forward. I am not as excited about the Detroit backfield. We talked about, potentially Kenyon Drake going there, but Johnny, we've got quite a mess on our hands here in Detroit. Did you want to speak to this? I mean, obviously, Ty Johnson was a huge waiver wire, ad this week, and yet he didn't even lead with the team in carries this week.
Nightmare.
Yeah, this was a giant concern, right? When with Ty, when everybody was racing to the waiver wire, that just kind of shows how scarce running back situation is in the NFL, that we get a little bit of a piece of what looks to be a piece of meat on a bone, and vultures are all over it, pecking at it, trying to get it. Carson, former Green Bay Packers, actually, he looked pretty good with the Green Bay Packers as well. Leads the way in carries here, Travis. But in total, 4 running backs get touches in this game, but they don't do much with it, right? 23 carries for 62 yards total. This offense does like to run the ball, or they have said they want to run the ball, right, when they're running their offense. So it will be interesting to see what kind of moves they do make with this trade deadline coming up. But my question to you, are you buying into Carson? I think I'm saying it too fast. Like, it just sounds Carson. I mean, that's pretty dope.
It might be Trey still, just with the A. I'd have to look that up. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just have to see. I mean, he wasn't even as effective as Ty Johnson was, and neither were very effective. I mean, let's be honest. This is not a a really fearsome matchup against the New York Giants, and Truck. Or now you got me saying it. Trey Carson or what? Carson. He only had 2.8 yards per
No,
carry.
people are gonna think you're talking Carson of Seattle, Chris Carson. Not to be maybe they're cousins.
Yeah, it could be.
Or
Ty Johnson had 3.6 yards per carry, and so neither of these guys super effective. I'm really interested to see how it goes going forward. But yeah, he's worth the ad for sure, just like Ty Johnson was worth the ad, unless of course Detroit ends up trading. The good thing is the trade deadline will go through before waivers. So you will be able to understand if trade deadline's on Tuesday. So you will be able to understand if the Lions go out and trade for Kenyon Drake. But yeah, I kind of like what I saw out of Ty Johnson still, even though he was the better back. This game did just get a little weird for Detroit, and they are throwing the football a lot more than I expected them to this year. Matt Stafford, you kind of figured this could have happened with how he has consistently been a deep ball thrower in his career. So
Matthew Stafford is having himself a really good year, Travis.
Right.
We were just off by a year on him. We were high on him last year. We should have doubled down on it because he's playing pretty well this year. He's got oh, go ahead.
Yeah, he's been super effective. It's kind of reminded me a little bit of Russell Wilson last year with how effective he's been with the deep ball. So I think Stafford's kind of digging what's going on here with Darrell Bevel and the offense, even though Jim Bob Cooter had the best name in all of football and was his good buddy. But it's working out well for Detroit. They just need to keep stacking some successful wins.
Do you think they still get together on Friday nights and just like have a beer? You
Probably.
got to, right? Like,
how could you not have a
how
beer?
Can you not tell your wife,
Cooter?
hey, babe, gonna go have a beer with old Jim and Bob? Like, that's got to happen, right? Like,
yeah, I would imagine so. So I mean that wraps up our storylines for Week 8 here. But I think I wanted to talk a little bit because Week 8 marks the halfway point for the NFL regular season. And of course, it actually is halfway through the entirety of the fantasy football season, especially if your playoffs run through Week 16. So I wanted to start a little bit here and ask your biggest surprises through 8 weeks in fantasy football. And this is just very loose, but just off the top of your head, Johnny, what are some of the biggest things that have shocked you from the 2019 season?
Certainly, Russell Wilson at the quarterback position. He is showing up every single week in and week out. We thought this was a massive running team, which they do run the ball a lot, but it was our numbers were showing us that there was going to be some passing regression for certain. However, we thought that his effectiveness and his efficiency would go down, and that has not happened. He's got over 2,000 passing yards right now. He's second in the league. Not second in the league with that, but he has just over 2,100 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, only 1 interception, Travis, and he's getting it done on the ground. Still, more than most quarterbacks, 182 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. So at the quarterback position, Russell Wilson continues to be a big surprise there. Definitely didn't have him finishing not even in the top 7 at the position. Big name in fantasy, big name in the MVP discussion. So that one's pretty fun. And, we did tend to doubt his efficiency and coming into this year, but it looks like he's just on pace to be what he's always been since he's come in the league, a winner and a guy that performs at a high level each and every week.
Yeah, he was playing at number 1 until just this week when Deshaun Watson stole that number 1 spot from him, but he's been there for the last 5 weeks at that number 1 QB.
Yeah, he's definitely been a bright spot for Seattle, and he continues to make other weapons work for him. Even with Will Dissly out, he saw DK Metcalf 2 times this last week. So, which we talked about as well. We talked about DK having a big game this week. From DK to DJ Shark, for me, DJ Shark is a big surprise. Just kind of in line with Gardner Minshew, who's a big surprise as well for the Jaguars on the real football note, but also in fantasy football, what DJ Shark has done in half point PPR, he's the wide receiver 4, 61 targets, 39 receptions, and he's just continues to be a great weapon for this team. Over 123 fantasy points in half point PPR on the year. And so DJ Shark's one of my biggest surprises this year. Just a really big fan. I mean, you look at some of the names up here, and yeah, you could say Cooper Kupp's a surprise. We talked about him. Obviously, Chris Godwin, but DJ Shark, nobody was calling this as a top 5 wide receiver 8 weeks in. And he's a guy that I can see it continuing to go because he has the eye, or Gardner Minshew has the eyes for him. So we like what we see out of there. Chelsea, did you have anybody you were kind of pleasantly or shocked?
Gardner Minshew, it's just been such a tumultuous year for quarterbacks in the league.
Oh yeah.
But one wide receiver who hasn't you wouldn't tell who's throwing him the ball, or it doesn't matter. Michael Thomas.
Oh yeah, Michael Thomas, man.
And it feels like now that we've got a Drew Brees who looks locked and loaded, and maybe even grew an extra thumb or something.
Yeah.
Michael Thomas, I think, is just going to blow the lid off the rest of the season. He's already at number 1 in half point PPR leagues. Is that what I'm seeing on your?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Michael Thomas is the number 1, leading the league in targets as well right now with 89, and receptions with 73. And that, just to talk about what Michael Thomas does, he's not going to touchdowns every week, maybe, but he's got 73 receptions. DeAndre Hopkins has 60. That's second place. So he's got 13 more catches than everybody else in the league right now. They're praying for a bye for Michael Thomas, which is coming this week because they want to catch up in those receptions. Johnny, on the other side of this, I want to talk a little bit about some of the biggest letdowns for you in 2018, or just the name that's really sparking the biggest letdown conversation for you.
Oh, should I just whip out my fantasy team here? Because I could certainly tell you a bunch on there. There's been a lot of disappointment, right? There's a lot of stars that, aren't living up to their draft capital. In fact, an interesting thing would be to have a draft right now, a mock draft. You know how we love our mock drafts. We'd be having a mock draft right now with just the first few rounds, because it would be interesting to see where players would be drafted if we were drafting right now, because it wouldn't be the same at all. You've got, David Johnson continues to be a huge disappointment. Even when he was healthy, he was getting some numbers, but certainly he didn't look good doing it. So that one's definitely a concern there. Alvin Kamara, a lot of these guys are injured. I guess a big part of it is injury, right, Travis?
Yeah, and I'd say withholding injury, like Le'Veon Bell comes to mind, because that was my first round draft pick. Yeah. What a nightmare! What a disaster scenario.
Yeah, you're hoping that Le'Veon Bell, just because the volume is so great, and that Darnold is back, that hopefully they'll get through some of the growing pains of Darnold coming back, and their schedule does open up a bit.
Regressed.
Yeah, which is kind of worrisome.
Yeah,
if you're regressing against some, obviously the Patriots you get, but like this week against Jacksonville, they weren't a scary matchup. For me, some of the disappointment, resides in Cleveland. Obviously, we could get into that. Baker Mayfield was drafted high. OBJ
I didn't want to bring up Cleveland on another show. I know.
Yeah, I don't want to go too. Yeah, I don't want to go too much into it. But either way, talking about, some of these guys, obviously, Melvin Gordon is one where you just continue to go, what's going on here?
Another guy they're saying
Juju Smith-Schuster. We'll see what happens tonight, but obviously in the quarterback situation has been bad for that one. And that's just kind of
to know what Chelsea was talking about, right? Like quarterbacks, that's probably over as a whole. That's probably the most shocking thing about this year was we came into this season saying quarterback depth is so deep. Don't worry about drafting a quarterback. and to some point that still holds water, right? But there's been so many quarterbacks just get injured, which normally doesn't really happen from year to year. The quarterback position is probably one of the least affected positions by injuries. Maybe they might get benched because they're not playing well. But I mean, look at this. We've gotten so many quarterbacks that have gotten injured this year and have sat out games. As many as I can recall of any year.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, and the way it's affected offenses in some cases. We saw the wide receivers for Carolina beat darlings for us in the offseason as far as fantasy football is concerned. But then with Cam Newton's injury, Kyle Allen has not consistently been able to hit any one guy in that offense week to week, and so you're just left wondering, what do I do with these guys? You look at San Francisco as a team where we thought could be really fun on offense, especially in the receiving category with some of the picks they made, Dante Pettis last year, and they end up having to be desperate and trading for Emmanuel Sanders and writing a run game that is just the most prolific in the NFL right now. So there are some things that are out there. Obviously, football is no shortage of surprising us and letting us down in different ways as well. But just keep with us, Whisper Nation. We want to know, what are your biggest letdowns and surprises? So go ahead and hit us in the comments there or DM us on social media. As always, if you want any more content, head over to thefantasywhispers.com. We've got articles, we've got rankings, all the good stuff over there. And we've got our Patreon account up. You can get the link there. You can go to Patreon and search the Fantasy Whispers. Chelsea, you got anything else for us today?
No.
All right. We passed the test.
We passed it.
Or she's just back from vacay, so
I'm still on vacay.
Yeah, mental vacation. You have to escape your fantasy roster sometimes. I understand. But we love you, Whisper Nation.
I can never get away from mine.
We hope that we can help you guys get those W's. So for Johnny Game Time Hicks and Chelsea Lee Byers, I'm Big Travy, and we're the Fantasy Whispers. We're out.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Whisperers podcast. You can hear more from John and Travis on Google Play, SoundCloud, and iTunes. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at TF Whisperers.